Will, you there?
Oh, there he is.
All right, there you go. Fantastic. Hey, I really appreciate you coming on, and I'm so looking forward to this conversation today. I just wanted to open with that. So,
thank you.
Thank you for your time. And by the way, this is Cheeto. He'll be my lap monkey for the duration of this podcast. All right. Going to, but so if they start barking, I might mute myself so that we're not blowing anybody's ears up. So bear with me. But hopefully they'll behave today. So I'd like you to introduce yourself, explain to the audience where and how and why you ended up on this path.
All right. So Wil Spencer, originally from northern Minnesota, grew up in the transition from my family's small farm, 380 some acres, diverse farm. That was Dad had 110 pastured sows back in the 60s. Into the 70s, did hay, corn, had cattle, was basically selling little pigs into the little pig feeder market in Minnesota and Iowa, and then transitioned into over 3,000 acres and 1,000 of corn, 1,000 of some kind of a bean, and 1,000 of potatoes, and over 840 cattle, beef cows. So I grew up mostly in the big farm at that point, and Dad had an airplane and a helicopter spraying pesticides. And for most of my childhood on that farm, I would get, they labeled it flu. I know now it's chemical toxicity every 7 to 10 days, all summer long. So every time they sprayed a pesticide in the area, I got sick. That was most of my summers as a child on that farm. And so developed all kinds of food, over 75 food and environmental allergies, overweight, all different kinds of problems on a bunch of pharmaceutical drugs. And after I left the farm, bought my own farm, my friends gave me a bunch of welcome to your farm gifts, like a whole box of books with biodynamic reading, like a whole bunch of Rudolf Steiner books and Sir Walter Russell books and all different kinds of organic, biodynamic, old natural science books. And that basically turned me on to this other kind of agriculture and way of looking at things. And then an old friend of mine gave me a glass of this tea, this stinky, horrible tea that basically my asthma that I had since I was like 6 years old, it went away in 20 minutes drinking this herbal tea. And I haven't looked back since that point in time. And so I've had over 40 different mentors in my life. I have most everything I've done is I call it OJT, on the job training. My dad was a fanatic about how you would trying to think of the word. You would go and work under somebody as an apprentice. Basically start by, washing the floors and the toilets and then work your way up to actually doing whatever you're doing. And so I've been down multiple disciplines that way with no academic training, virtually just a little bit here and there, but if I needed specifics, but mostly everything was hands-on. I was the assistant on my first C-section when I was about 9 years old in a snowstorm with my dad doing a cow and with a pocket knife. And I assisted that first C-section. And so it's been, hands-on ever since. So here we are, all these years later, helping reverse all this damage to our environment. We're able to, there's nothing now that we can't digest out of the environment. There's no such thing as forever chemicals anymore. We can do radioactive elements now to, it doesn't matter, metals, plastic, all this stuff. We can digest it all out of the environment. And then at the same time, in situ, raise nutrient dense, high vitality medicinal crops that actually are your medicine. Because right now, food is not your medicine, it's your poison.
Well said. well said. I'm all about what you just talked about, whether it's bioremediation to make the soil healthy, get it functioning again with the biology, so that it is actually creating proper food for medicine. And so, kudos to you for practicing this and taking the time to explain it to other people. I mean, that's the foundation of what we got to do if we're going to ever turn this aircraft carrier around.
Yeah.
My experience was with naturopaths was when my beloved Pauline got struck down with cancer, and you know, this was the craziest thing. This woman was super healthy, 100% organic, licensed or certified in 17 different modalities, including Ayurvedic medicine. So she was deep down the medical rabbit hole, or the alternative medical rabbit hole. And when she got struck with stage 4 ovarian, the thing that hit home the hardest was that she'd also done some deep spiritual work in protecting. She took a course in New Mexico, something path. But they did a lot of self-healing, deep introspection, ayahuasca, mushrooms, peyote, self-journeys, journaling, and learning how to protect themselves from energy exchanges, negative energy exchanges, i.e., you know, like taking on someone's cancer, taking on someone's negative energy, you know, all the things that we in this day and age don't talk about. This was something that, you know, the elders, there usually was a medicine person of one kind or another that had these recipes and remedies and ways of teaching people how to self-heal as well as protect from, you know, potentially negative entities. And needless to say, she admitted or stated that she screwed up and that she didn't use the protections that she was taught responsibly. And so she said in her own words, I took on 80% of this through carelessness, but I'll accept that 20% of it was my own fault. And that it didn't really resonate with me at the time. I was like, you know, I don't think that that's a real thing. And as we went through the process of, you know, dealing first with the operation to remove the cancerous tumors, we met a up and coming oncologist that was top of his, you know, class. He was also looking at other methodologies and advancing both the science as well as the operation techniques and methods. Brilliant guy, extremely egotistical, but I think that was important for him because of what he was trying to get across to the oncology industry, which is basically cemented in their ways. You know, cut it, chemo it, radiation. That's it. And so, as the relationship evolved from, you know, being prepping for the operation, going through the operation, and then doing checkups after, he turned around quite a bit. In the beginning, he was like, "If you want to die, just die. Like, why are we going to go through all this trouble with, you know, removing the tumor if you won't let me, you know, at least wipe out your insides of your stomach with chemo and do some responsible post-treatment, you know, regimes." And she was adamant, absolutely not, under no circumstances. I do not give you permission to do that. And they got in an argument. I had to literally get in between them, kind of like push them back, you know, get him back in his seat and her back in her seat. And it's like, look, there's common ground here, guys. Let's focus on what we both or all agree on, and not try to, you know, force something down each other's throats. And in many ways, that was the beginning of what I want to call the two little boys on the playground. You know, you fight each other and then you become friends for life. And in many ways, when she moved on and he actually took a residency down at Princeton, one of the last things she did for him, And there was a lot more behind this than this one gift, but the one gift really cemented their relationship, and that was a set of minerals that she had tied on a necklace on some leather strap, and said, "Hey, listen, just wear this when you're working with other patients. You know, these will take on the negative energy and protect you from cancer." And he smiled, he gave her a big hug, and he put it on, and he said, "You know what? You have no idea how many fellow oncologists I know that are now struck with cancer, even though they were, you know, healthy, took care of themselves, ate well." And I always wondered how it was possible that they ended up getting cancer when they're, you know, doing all the right things in their life. And so that was like the beginning of like understanding what that path looks like. And I know I'm getting a little bit off course here, but bottom line was eventually we ended up in a homeopath's office in what was it? Not Connecticut. It was Concord, Massachusetts. A naturopath, and he had basically gotten on the path due to getting testicular cancer. And in the beginnings, he said he almost lost his marriage because he was like drying all these weird herbs, making all these concoctions in the kitchen, you know, stinking the house up, which I'm sure you're experienced some of that stuff. And,
right.
But when he actually cured himself and came back zero to detect, his wife welcomed the practice in open arms and said, "You know what? This is really important. And it needs to be given as an option from what the traditional oncology path is." And so I would go to every meeting with her. I'd usually drive her up there because we lived in Connecticut. And I really got to know the guy and appreciate his methodologies. And a lot of the things he did was he would mix and match different herbs to create different interactions or reactions. And he'd often say, "Okay, your blood work came back, and this particular thing, like your killer T cells are elevating. So we're going to have to go off of this particular herb and onto this combination of other herbs that are going to do something similar. But because it's new to your body, it's going to have a better reaction because you've obviously built up some tolerance to that other herb that you're on." And those kinds of approaches were like, you know, it made me really appreciate the man as like, he could have just said nothing and just kept her on that one herb, but he took the extra step and was like really trying to, you know, push this in a way that was not only effective, but responsible for her body and how her body was, you know, getting comfortable with certain prescribed herbs. So maybe you could talk a little bit more on that as a starting point.
Yeah, sure. So some of my training in the beginning was in herbology from several different North American Indians. And for instance, I've had people come to me that have been on echinacea or coneflower for years every day. And I was taught that you never were on echinacea more than 5 to maybe 7 days max, and then you got to give it a break because your body will get accustomed to most of the herbs out there. So you got to cycle, and so that's a real thing that I learned. But yet the herbology, the way it's taught now in school, is more allopathic. I call it allopathic because they're using natural, less toxic substances to still manage the disease. And so this is where people going to naturopaths that get on herbs, so most of them, they keep you on the same herb forever, just like you would get on a pharmaceutical drug forever. And so I was taught the old ways, which are a lot different, like the fellow you're talking about there. You got to cycle, or you have to advance or rotate, or however you want to call it, so your body doesn't get used to it, because our bodies will adapt. The microorganisms and other parasites or the other organisms that live with us will adapt to what you're eating or what you're using for medicine fairly quickly. That's what makes us a very adaptable species in general, because people can live on just about any environment in the planet because we have the ability to adapt relatively quickly and thrive, or at least survive. So that's a real thing. And so I was taught that, and herbology is another thing. The other thing that kind of pertains to this is I was taught not to raise herbs, but to hunt herbs. Some of my training back in the day, we would get up at 4:30 and we'd have to go hunting herbs because my mentors knew that herbs never grew in the same place all the time. You had to go hunt. Sometimes there would be yarrow here or nettles here for a time, and then they would be gone and they would be over there. So to get the best medicinal herbs, you've got to hunt them or wildcraft them. Even to this day, I have a group of wildcrafters that work for me that in the Appalachian here where I am now, they are always out hunting for me, gathering certain herbs because I want them hunted. I don't want agriculturally raised herbs because as soon as you monoculture an herb, you at least 50% of the value goes away. And so then you're left with an inferior product, where a naturally growing one out in the environment that's growing where it's sensing it needs to grow is much more medicinally valuable.
Wow, very powerful. Yeah, it's funny that you should say that. One of the things that Pauline was doing, I was giving conferences at the time, traveling around the country, and working with transitioning mostly cannabis growers away from synthetics and into regenerative. And so we focused a lot on polyculture and making sure that you were not just growing one thing, but growing multiple species in groups, even though it was harder to harvest because things came ready at different times, and you know you're pushing things out of the way to get the things you need. Everybody that had been been following that type of practice would explain that the quality of all of the herbs or vegetables or combination thereof, fungi included, were better. They tasted better. They felt better, easier to digest. And that's something else we got to get into is digestion. But we're going to stay on topic here for right now. But that was like a real eye opener. I had preached, you know, polyculture, but not like intermingled polyculture. Like you grow a row of this, you grow a row of this, et cetera, et cetera. Whereas these guys are like, no, you throw everything at the kitchen sink in there and let them fight it out for survival. But in the end, they all start working together, and you get not only a more beneficial harvest, but a more well-rounded and diverse. The diversity of the microbes help each other. It's kind of like building a village where you've got, you know, your blacksmith, your carpenter, et cetera, et cetera. So I love the concept of wildcrafting, and that's the first time I've ever heard anybody really go down that rabbit hole. And so one of the other things too was the power of wildcrafting is that you're having all of these other natural forces, birds, animals, dung, insects, everything working in unison to allow that herb or that plant to really thrive. So maybe you can talk a little bit more on the power of the wildcraft versus even this type of polyculture.
So we'll come at it from just a slightly different direction, but you'll get this, because this has been so paramount right now in so many conversations I'm having with potential clients in the ag in remediation work, because herbs will come at it from weeds. You're familiar with the term weed, which is an unwanted plant, right? An unwanted plant from a monoculture standpoint. Well, I don't look at anything as a weed. There's a medicinal healing quality to every herb. And so when we're going in to fix a farm, which I'll give you an example. Last year, last summer, I got called in to help a herd of buffalo in Oklahoma that were dying, and they were belly deep in green stuff, but they were not eating any of it, and there was really no grass to speak of. And the guy that was managing and responsible for the animals just was totally out of his mind because he didn't know why the buffalo were not eating all the green stuff, the plants that were there. And so basically we got hired. I was there about 5 weeks. We looked at every plant and what that plant was affixing. We looked at the soil. We looked at all the buffalo. I mean, we did extensive work to really get a plan put together to fix that ranch. So we found that the soil was missing most of the nutrition. There was hardly any herbs there at all. I mean, excuse me, there was hardly any minerals in that soil at all. It was basically a coal mine at one point in time 100 years ago that then just got leveled back out, and then stuff started to grow, and then now it's a ranch. And so we looked at all the different herbs that were growing there, and it's nature trying to fix that soil. Like I just saw that word dandelion right there pop up on the screen. So we'll talk about that real quick, because dandelions are well known, from my standpoint anyhow, to affix calcium. And so if the soil is lacking calcium, there's going to be just naturally a high dandelion content growing there, because that's how nature's fixing that soil that's low in calcium. The plant, the dandelion, grows up, sucks in the calcium from the air and in the soil the best it can. It dies, it rots, and it's leaving behind more calcium than was there prior to the dandelion growing there. And that goes for any mineral. That's from zinc to boron to just you name it, nitrogen to, because we've tested all these different herbs to know that, like for instance, clover on that buffalo farm was only sequestering and affixing nitrogen 3 and 4, NO3 and 4 in that plant. There was no other real noticeable minerals in that clover that was growing but nitrogen. And then the plants were dying, and then that's how nature fixes itself, but it takes literally hundreds of years to do that. And so this is why wildcrafting is so important over growing, because growing as in monoculture or farming herbs, because a lot of times, and I've tried this years and years and years ago, it was frustrating to me because I couldn't get certain herbs to grow in the soil because I was trying to farm them. They wouldn't grow. Literally, I'd buy expensive seeds, fertility and all that, but they wouldn't grow because the soil there didn't support their life, because they were, for instance, we'll say dandelion. I'm trying to grow dandelions, but I had a lot of calcium in the ground from composting and putting humates and certain things in there. Dandelions wouldn't grow because they didn't need to grow, because the soil had plenty of calcium in it already. And so saying that is, I don't look at anything as a weed. We're able to test for and see what is missing in the soil, and then we're able to test the plants to see what mineral or group of minerals that they're sequestering from the air or from the soil and affixing. And so that is our basis of what we do now, is we're able to know what the weed, if you will, the medicinal herb is sequestering to fix the problem that's in the soil and to boost its overall vitality.
I love that. That's probably the best way I've ever heard someone speak of it. And I personally call them indicator plants, because you're absolutely right. They indicate something. They're telling you something. And nature will eventually evolve from, like a what do we call it? A brassica-based soil all the way to a redwood fungally dominant soil, if you allow it. And then there'll be a reset, like a volcano, or an earthquake, or a storm, or tornado. so nature's always in flux, and it's just a
Always,
matter of,
yep.
yeah, it's a matter of us saying, okay, you want to do this. This is the way to approach it so that you're supporting the plants that you want and discouraging the plants that you don't want. So again, we're on the same path, my friend, as far as how to go about doing it. And again, you know, man is only on the planet for, let's say, 80 years for round numbers. So we always try to force things instead of allowing nature to do its thing. And that's been our biggest problem, is because we're forcing everything. We're creating more and more problems to the point where we've degraded everything, that there are no minerals left, or the only chance that that soil is going to get any of that mineral is either through us, you know, applying a rock flour, mineral dust, or synthetic. And the synthetic, we both know what that does. That just continues the downward spiral. So I love that. And again, going back to the point of wildcrafting, you're probably getting things that are a lot more powerful as far as, like, if you did nutritional tests on the plants. Have you ever, like, gone to, like, Nestle's and had them test the nutritional value of the wildcrafted herbs versus grown herbs?
I've done the testing because I have my own lab. So I know exactly what a farmed herb has for medicinal value versus a wildcraft from a farm, because we're looking at that. We look at the general vitality. We look at the terpene counts. We look at all the different minerals, nutrient density. You know, we have our own panel that we look for. You mentioned earlier hemp or cannabis, and I've been in that since the 80s. So I'm very familiar with that. We've taken, actually, kind of upsets people because most of your stuff on the market is just trash that I'm aware of, because we've taken some, I bought seeds that they're telling me that, oh, this stuff raises 30, you're going to have over 30% THC, and you know, you're going to have this CBD and all this stuff. And so we buy those seeds, and then we use our system on it, and the THC goes away. We get a full 30 some terpene panel expression. We get almost 100 and some cannabinoids expressed, but we have zero THC because THC is really the stress hormone, the stressor of the plant. So if you're stressing the plant, it's going to produce THC. If you don't stress the plant, if you know how to feed that plant and nurture that plant, you're going to get full expression of all the other terpenes and cannabinoids, and you're going to have zero THC, because THC in and of itself is a response to, I'm going to die, and it's like a cortisol or an adrenaline dump for us in humans. THC is like that for a plant. So if that plant is expressing THC in any way, you know that that plant's under some kind of stress. And so when you can raise a cannabis plant that has zero THC, but it has this full expression of everything else, you know, at least in my opinion, I've been taught this. I know that I've raised a highly medicinal, valuable medicine there, because it doesn't have THC, and so that's the whole point. In when you know, and you can test for this, like we do, we always provide the best, highest nurturing, calmest, best environment we can to support growth and sustenance for that plant. Then it's going to express in so many ways that most people, especially academia, we're constantly freaking academia out because our tests are so strange, the results that we get, because, well, where did the THC go? And it's always funny to watch these university professors, because they're all taught that academic dogmatic nature of science, of dominate and control nature. When I was taught with my mentors a whole different way that was basically 100 years ago, they stopped teaching it. It's called natural science. And that is to work within the confines of nature to bring out the full expression of the plant in the healthiest manner. And so that's the contradiction to academia and the USDA way of looking at things. And the professors nowadays, they don't look at things the same. I sat in a room 6 months ago with a fella that owns the largest ginkgo biloba plantation, and I talked for an hour about what I see looking at his tests and what we're going to do for him if he wants to use our system. And he sat there and his mouth gaping open for an hour. He goes, "You have any idea what you just told me?" I said, "Well, I mean, I do. I know what I'm saying." He says, "I've had in that chair that you're sitting in over 40 PhDs from around the world, and I have never, in 40 years of running this farm, I have never heard what you just told me in 40 years from the most highly educated people from around the world. I'm talking South Africa, all over Europe, London, all around this country." And I'm like, "Well, I'm sorry. I guess they're suffering from academic information, because I'm not taught that. I was taught this other way of looking at things, where our whole goal is to basically figure out what is going to nurture that plant and get the environment to support the absolute best genetic expression of that plant that you could possibly have on all levels. I don't want to force anything, because that causes issues with the plant, and so it's going to be in stress." And so that's the two contradictives that you brought up a little bit earlier about this academic way of looking at things from clinical science versus over here in the natural science where I come from, and most of my mentors have kept me over here looking at things to support and nurture in the plants and animals in nature, instead of control and dominate, which is the clinical way of looking at things.
Yeah, and let's face it, the education system itself is the problem. The reductionist scientists, the chemical approach is the foundation of the problem. So I'm glad to hear that gentleman understood what you said. And yeah, the expression of the minor cannabinoids in a major way was something that I learned very quickly. When I got involved with the cannabis industry, I come from a soil biology and a soil engineering background. And so when I got, kind of, how do I say, thrown into the whole cannabis culture, first thing I did was say, well, look, if you really think that you want to make a difference, then the only way to do this is to teach it one-on-one, not doing a podcast, not doing a webinar, because you got to be able to look into people's eyes to see if you're losing them, or they understand what you're talking about, or you're talking over their head and making them feel stupid, for lack of better words. And that was the key to the whole thing, was that you find these camps, oh, we're biodynamic, oh, we're soil food web, oh, we're hybrid synthetic, or hydroponic using fish, aquaponics. And so it was really interesting to figure out that, all these people had, a good approach to it, but they were missing a lot of the pieces of the puzzle to get to the next level. So year after year, we did this for, I think it was 3 years. By the third year, we had people that attended on the first year coming back to us saying, oh my God, you would not believe the difference that we're seeing in our plants, in our animals, in our own bodies, how much better we are now that we have introduced some of these other practices and not remained in our own camp, but have been willing to go to other camps to understand what they're doing. So again, this is, in my experience, that was the real aha. Like, oh my God, we made some progress. Yeah, your THC is now only 17, but look at all of the terpenes. Look at the terpenes are dripping down the jar. They never seen things like these. And then it was used through, well, it started with what was called the horizontal soil system. So it was using nature, following nature's guide on how soil is formed. So we create an aquifer layer, which was a sand filter. Then we'd mix sand, silt, clay, and organic matter at a certain ratio. That was the A horizon. And the last was the O horizon, which is what they typically grew, which was a potting soil, right? So it had very little nutrition in it, and that's where they had to pound it with different types of either NPKs or rock dust and compost teas and extracts and stuff like that. But once they moved into that direction of understanding that you need sand, silt, clay with your organic matter, if you're really going to create the diversity in microbes that are going to downstream affect, the terpenes and the cannabinoid expressions. And so the first two times I introduced that, again, I come from a soil engineering background where I was forced to grow plants irresponsibly. Like the architects, landscape architects would want to grow a swamp maple and surround it with boxwoods, tight to the trunk on the same irrigation system, right? In the same soil. It don't work, right? So I was forced to say, okay, I need to blend soils for this in this manner so that this retains water and this loses water. And I had, plant success of like no plant loss. And the landscape architects were like, what the hell are you doing? And I'm like, well, it's a combination of engineering, making the soil structure correct for that particular plant, but also introducing the biology. So I use a fish mulm, which is basically fish manure, which there's really no such thing, because when a fish poops, it's poof, it's organic matter in the water column. Worm castings and my own biologically intensive compost. And by doing that, I've got a whole suite of organisms. And we can go down the rabbit hole of horizontal gene transfer and biosymbiosis, of how these microbes interact with each other and basically evolve at a pace that's like insane. It's almost not comprehensible. But that's the key to it, is that diversity. And I think that's, again, one of the strengths of wildcrafting, is you're getting all that diversity by default. So I really, the more I think about wildcrafting indicator plants, is the proper approach to medicine.
That's the only way to medicine in my book, because why would you farm something that's going to be 50% less medicinal? That makes zero sense if your outcome is for the end consumer to have a quality product. So I've only been wildcrafting. I don't farm any of that stuff. I buy exclusively the different stuff that we make off of Wildcrafters. It's more expensive and it's more time consuming, and sometimes we run out of material. But by the end of the year, it's the better for the consumer, because your medicinal value is so much more.
Thanks for answering that, Ken. Yes, they're interchangeable. They're the same. One of the people asked whether we were talking about soil or the human body.
Yeah, they're one and the same. Exactly. Yeah.
All right. So let's talk about some of your patients. What are you full spectrum, like all over the map?
Oh yeah, I've been dealing with people since the 90s. When I got my farm and I started wildcrafting herbs in the 90s, I started making tea combinations and tinctures and things like that back then, and still do. I mean, actually today we were just in the warehouse. Now we have a full-fledged manufacturing facility, but in the warehouse we were just prepping Osage hedge balls to go into tinctures today, a new batch. So, we're still doing it to this day, 30 some years later. So I'm really, my whole goal in especially the last 15 years, has been getting into the agricultural space, because food is not our medicine. The soils in this country have been devoid of, I would say, close to 90% of essential trace minerals since 1936. And that's documented by U.S. Senate Document 264. You can look it up online. So it's documented 90 some years ago. The soils were bad and deficient then, bad enough that they told everybody that it was bad. And we have the same but worse agricultural practices today as we did 90 some years ago. And I've tested soils all over this country as well as 5 continents. The way we look at soils, from general vitality levels, to nutrient density levels, to the ability to the immune function of the soil, the microbial diversity of the soil. It's amazing that we're even alive today. To me, it's staggering that we have actual things that we can actually grow in this soil, like in Iowa, for instance. The worst soil, which is pretty common now everywhere. I've just tested some soils in South Carolina, Florida, Iowa, again, in Wyoming, and in Colorado, I think it was. Anyhow, it's all pretty much looks the same. We have toxicity levels through the roof, pesticides and genetically modified just through the roof. We have very little beneficial organisms in the soil, but we have a high concentration of pests in the soil, as in like negative funguses and bad nematodes. And we have a concentration of genetically modified organisms, meaning genetically modified bacteria and funguses that are living well out in agricultural soil. So that's scary to me. That means the soil doesn't have the ability to kill those modified synthetic or unnatural organisms. They're thriving out in that chemical wasteland. The vitality levels are so low; it's under 100 generally in agricultural land. You can't have an immune function in the soil until your general vitality is at 400 or above. If you're at 400 or above, you won't have pests. You won't have hardly any weed pressure. And so we have most of the soil in this country is 100 or less in vitality. When that happens, you have no reserve energy, which that's your carryover from year to year. You have virtually almost no immune reaction because you don't have the vitality and the nutrients to make immune reactions. And the microbial diversity, for the most part, the naturally occurring microbe diversity is gone. I mean, gone. My mentors through the 50s and 60s and 70s got paid by the Department of Agriculture, the Department of Army and Navy to travel around this world and collect microbes and bring them back to this country because they knew this soil was deficient here, but they were being paid to collect these microbes to bring them back to this country to see if they could weaponize them or commercialize them. And that was the main thing that the USDA and the Army were working together, was creating war machine or industrial machines, out of these microbes. And come to find out now that these microbes that have been naturally wildcrafted, if you will, from around the planet, now are of extreme value now because they're not in our soil anymore. So we have over thousands of strains of soil organisms now in our arsenal that we're able to now clean up, digest, and make soil and soil diversity like nobody else can, because we have the diversity now in our storehouse now that we're using.
So it sounds like you've shifted more toward soil health over cures, or is that incorrect?
Well, what keeps me alive right now is working with people, and so because ultimately everything comes from the soil. But the problem is, this is why I've been working for the last 15 years to get into agriculture this way, because ultimately, if our soil and our food chain was actually healthy and nutrient dense and full of vitality, then we wouldn't have sick people. But the problem is that until that happens, because the USDA to me is a gatekeeper to keep the soil polluted and to keep the soil unhealthy, to keep the medical mafia, to keep the rotation of sick people, to keep coming in to make money on the whole thing. And so until we are able to get stuff into the soil, we got to have people health. And so it's much easier to take a supplement right now than it is for people, than it is to convert large tracts of land into nutrient dense food machines. That's not happening right now. we have a lot of people, even in the regenerative space, that, I mean, they're moving in the right direction, but we're all going to be dead if we don't figure this out. Well, my mentors and me, my partners and I, we've got this figured out. We can take your dead soil, literally, they're growing sand in the Middle East and turning it into gardens of Eden. They've been doing it for 30 years, my mentors. They've now taught me, and now we have a commercially viable system, which you're a guest. Actually, my partner was on your show last week or 2 weeks ago, whatever. And we have a commercially available process now where we can take, it don't matter what it is, sand, clay, cliche, swamp, it doesn't matter the growing medium at this point, as long as we can get our product into the environment of the plant. That plant's going to have the ability to fully express genetically what it can, no matter what it is. So we've pretty much got it into a pretty much an idiot-proof way of growing food, high dense food with no toxins, even if the environment you start with is toxic rich. And so it's actually the microbes can turn the toxins into essential fatty acids and colloid minerals and actually feed the plants. And so we've taken bioremediation and agriculture to this next level, that we're actually taking toxins and turning it into plant food in situ with while the plant is growing.
Beautiful, man. Beautiful. Yeah. I was blessed to have met a guy probably in 2012, who had traveled the world and harvested microorganisms living in horribly toxic environments. And then he brought them back to his lab, I believe it was in Wyoming, Minnesota. And then he cultured them and was able to then turn around and take those back to other sites here in the U.S. and use them for bioremediation. Now, you're way ahead of me, way ahead of me, because when I was learning this stuff and talking to people about it, they thought I had 3 heads. Like I didn't have mentors that would explain to me how it was actually working. You know, whether it was creating a unbioavailable, whether it was stealing electrons, whether it was actually breaking the compound apart. I had none of that. But the guy intrigued me to a point where, you know, I was all about it. And he was down in Florida at the time, and when he was going to come back, he and I were going to meet. And I met him through another gentleman named John Todd, who had done a lot of work on bioremediating water. So water that had been polluted, or whether you wanted to have an alternative septic system, whatever, he was using a series of plants and microbes and pools, and, you know, like air blowers, all these different things, and animals, fish, you know, and stuff like that, snails, clams, oysters, to detoxify the water to the point where it came in, you know, either toxic, nasty, cloudy, very turbid. And by the time it went through the whole process, it was crystal clear. And when you drank it, you know what mountain spring water is like. It's just like, wow, your whole body just goes, woo, right? And that was from this water that was, you know, either toxic or polluted. And so he blew me away. He was the first one. Then he introduced me to this other guy, and we were supposed to meet. And unfortunately, he mysteriously died, right? And I tried to reach out to his foundation or his family and said, hey, you know, please, you know, he's got a whole library. Don't let that go to waste. You know, he spent his whole lifetime on this. And they didn't want nothing to do with it. So, you know, obviously some threats were made, you know, after he mysteriously died. But I lost that window, right? So I'm really super excited to speak to you. We had a project at the Santa Susana Field Lab that was supposed to kick off January 1st of this year. And what happened were the California wildfires, Malibu, Palisades, Altadena, and everything shut down, right? The focus was on, you know, we got to clean up this mess, and Boeing backed out at the last minute. But there are going to be projects coming up in the near future. We've demonstrated the ability to lock up heavy metals. We've demonstrated the ability to diffuse or break down Roundup. So we have and also fungicides and insecticides and herbicides. We've been able to document non-detect in soil that we know was absolutely loaded because it's 50 years of monoculture synthetic growing. So I know, like you, I know that it's out there. We're working right now with bee crop or biomakers. I don't know if you've heard of them on DNA analysis. So what they do is they give us the what we call the long reads or the short reads, and then we run it through what's called a pipeline. The pipeline helps you to digest all this information and make it what's called human readable, so that you could say, okay, this group of bacteria do this, this group of fungi do that. We've got them present or we don't have them. And then from there, we can recommend different recipes based on our other work, which is testing out these different formulations of vermicompost or compost or fish mold to create a I like to call it like a pizza, but the perfect food for the soil to really charge it up in a way that it can do the cleanup very quickly within a year. So maybe you can talk a little bit more about your experience in bioremediation.
So bioremediation. So glyphosate is one of the easier compounds that takes about 5 minutes to break down in the presence of our solution. It's all about. So we have a really big diversity of organisms that we've been able to keep alive in storage and grow them out. And when you deploy our system into the environment, the microorganisms come alive and they're looking for food. And so if they find a food source, because some of them love metals, some of them like radioactive elements like barium or cesium or uranium or whatever. Then some of them like just certain things, plastics. A lot of them like hydrocarbons and hydrocarbon products. And so they will express, and then the ones that don't sense a food source, they will basically go dormant because they're not needed. There's not a food source for them. And so we deploy our system into the environment. We can customize as well with what we do, because there are several different products. They're not all one product, because you can't keep all of them alive or keep them dormant rather and successfully in storage and shipping for long periods of time. So the computer system that we have, we take a sample of the environment we're going to deploy the system in, and basically we're able to customize the blend that we're going to be going into the system, or into that environment. So let's just say barium, because barium right now for me is a hot topic. We're just eking our way into the oil and gas industry, and we just happen to have some really good success with breaking barium down in soil and water. And so we've been deploying the microbes into the environment where that's barium rich. And so then all of a sudden, through over time, say it's 4 months or whatever time frame is, there's no more barium there. So we're not just sequestering the barium, we're actually transmuting that barium. I like the word transmutation, because we're taking the radioactive barium element here that your computer, your spectrometer is picking up the parts per million of 29 or whatever it is. We'll use 29 because that was one of our tests. And then in 4 months, with the microbes we're eating on it, creating exudates and enzymes and breaking that down, turning it into essential fatty acid, which is a food for the environment. And now the barium is gone. It went from a toxin through the microorganism digestion, creating the exudates and enzymes to break it down and turn it into a food for something else. And so doesn't matter now if it's the you've heard of the PFAS or forever chemical things. That is pretty a pretty big topic now. We've broken down most of those, and so there's no such thing as forever chemicals anymore, because that forever chemical concept is a fear-based propaganda machine, really, because there's organisms that love to break that down. So PFAS is, let's just say, the polyfluorinated whatever compound it is. It actually comes from, originally, it comes from the earth. At its origin, those elements are extracted either out of coal tar or hydrocarbons coming out as gas or oil. They're coming from the earth. And then they, under pressure, temperature, electrolysis, or whatever the mechanism is, splits all those compounds apart. And then they re-engineer it and glue it back together in different ways, creating all these different unique chemical compounds. Well, it just so happens that the organisms that we have, that we use and raise, they can recognize where they're coming from for whatever way. I mean, I don't really personally, in my mind, I don't care how they recognize it. I just know that when you put our stuff in the presence of PFAS, they create certain enzymes and exudates that begin to break down those elements down into a non-toxic substance that's food for the environment. And so it doesn't matter what it is. We've got tests now to go across the spectrum: radiation, heavy metals, plastics, all the unique chemistry that's out there now. We've been able to break it all down. And so nature, when you figure out how to work within nature and support nature working at its best and finest, then there's a reality that I get to live on a daily basis where there is no mystery. There's no mystery, because I've got basically cows that will eat just about everything. You just got to get the cows in the environment. You got to get the microbes into the environment so then they can do their job. And that is eat and create digestive juices and create a waste product that is beneficial for the next life cycle.
All right, we're going to have you back on again to just talk about soil. But before we get too far along, I'd like to talk about some of the medical stuff that's been going on. Ivermectin, febendazole, methyl blue.
Sure.
Some of these things that have been kept from us, from the industry. So a lot of people talk about parasites. And can you speak a little bit on, what's going on with our guts? Why is there such a high level of, gut problems?
Why? That's a really good question. So I'll speak from my clinical observation and my clinical experience, which entails over 26,000 scans that I've done on people. I keep soils and animals separate from people. I personally have done over 26,000 scans on people from 5 different continents. And I look for things. I have my own lab, so I'm looking for things from my standpoint. I'm looking at general vitality. That's your overall vitality. I look for malnutrition, how malnutritioned you are. I look for infections. Of all infections include parasites, bacteria, fungus, to whatever level. And then I look at chemical toxicity from several different levels or different angles. And so out of 26,000 scans, a little over now, every single scan has systemic chemicals, malnutrition, and systemic infections. And so we're talking parasites. Parasites, for the most part, are given to us. If you're one of the first 2 children born to your mother, you're going to have the biggest load of parasites from your mother, coupled with some toxicity and a little bit of malnutrition, because mother can't make anything better than you. And so what I said earlier, we are 100 years, we know our soil's deficient in a lot of trace elements. And so malnutrition has been high on every single scan that I've done over the last 15, well, it's close to 17 years now, on 5 continents, every one. So from my experience, everyone is malnutritioned and everyone's loaded with parasites, because parasites, bacteria, and fungus, if they're in a infectious or pathogenic state, it's the immune system's job to keep those organisms in their parameters. The immune system cannot do its job if you're malnutritioned. Your immune system can't do its job if it doesn't have the enough vital energy or general vitality. The immune system cannot do its job if there is endocrine system disrupting chemicals inside of you. And so the amount of nutrition and energy needed for the immune system to function is really high, and we don't have that in our food chain to supply that. We don't have it in our bodies to supply that, and our mothers cannot create anything more healthier than they are. And so we've got 100+ years of degeneration from generation to generation to generation. And so the outcome of that is the parasites, bacteria, and fungus basically don't have a regulator to keep themselves in check, because the immune system is not functioning like it's supposed to. And so things like ivermectin, for instance, like my father used that on me when let's say he had 840 cows. And every time my dad would worm the animals, us kids got wormed. The hired men and the hired men's families got wormed, because my father knew enough anyhow, and he knew that the people interfacing with the animals can be given parasites to the cattle, not just the cattle giving parasites to people. It went both ways. And so I've been using ivermectin on me since I was a kid. I've been using it clinically for a very long time. And so this whole thing recently of ivermectin and fenbendazole coming into the picture is, but I've been using that for decades. And so it's just becoming a thing. I'm kind of excited because now it gives me a little bit more value, because I understand how it works and the mechanisms that cause the worms and so forth, the funguses, to die. But the problem is, if you stop using the ivermectin and the fenbendazole without restoring the immune function, you're going to be using it over and over again, because you're going to knock the infection down by taking ivermectin, for instance. Well, there's no immune function to hold that balance there. So eventually there's going to be a reinfection taking place, because you never kill it all off. We can't live without these organisms inside of us. Some of the main conversation points that I find with people is, people will say, oh, well, what about E. coli? What about Staphylococcus? I'm like, well, first of all, we need E. coli, Staphylococcus, and Streptococcus, and Listeria. We need those organisms inside of us, because when they're in balance, that's how our B vitamins are created. People are saying, well, they don't have B vitamins, and their body's not making it anymore. Well, of course they can't, because they're loaded with systemic infections. And so when those organisms are out of balance, like E. coli or Salmonella, when they're out of balance, they're not creating the B vitamins properly. They're harming you. And it's all based on that immune function, because it's that immune system's job to keep the balance within all of the organisms that are inside of us, because we're only 10% human by volume of virtue of cell count. We are 90% bacteria, 90% bacteria, fungus, and parasites. That's the other. There's a whole book. It's called it's called 10% Human. And it explains very well and in depth in there that we are only 10% human. We are 90% nature or other. And it's the immune system's job to keep the 90%, in their proper balances. But that doesn't happen. That regulation is unable to take place in today's world because the immune system doesn't have the nutrition incoming in the diet to make that so. And there has too many of the endocrine system disrupting chemicals like that are used in pesticides and food preservatives and pharmaceutical drugs that interfere and keep our immune system from functioning and regulating like it's supposed to.
That was incredibly powerful. That was beautifully put. It's not one. It's the complete out of balance.
Oh yeah.
So Ken, did he give you his website and stuff? Because I haven't seen you flashing it yet. So we want to make sure that our audience can get in contact with you.
So I'm at a little disadvantage. My partner that was on here last week, Pat Miletich, there's two websites there. There's Soil Saviors and there's Cell Saviors. That's the partnership with Pat. I have my own. They're down right now. They're being rebuilt. So we can talk about those at another time. But right now, the Soil Saviors and the Cell Saviors sites, a lot of this information I'm talking about right now, Pat and I have done numerous videos, not much written because we like to do it in video like this to basically convey a message through audio video. Because a lot of people in today's world would much rather watch a video than read an article, which, I get it. It's easier to pop a video on and go about your work than actually sitting down reading nowadays. So, but a lot of this information, we're touching on this on those sites. There is literally pages and pages and pages of videos and links in those two websites. So if you just go there and watch. And we're trying to get, our point is to get this information out because it's so foreign, that these natural concepts are so foreign in today's world that they're almost forgotten. And like you said earlier, I mean, I say these things like I'm saying them now in this presentation, and it's so common that people say a lot of explanatory negative things, but this is natural science. It's just because it's not taught in a university anymore doesn't mean it's any less real than it has been for the last thousands of years of natural science. Because some of my mentors, when I was learning some of this as a kid, were born in the 1800s. So they were exposed to this in the 1800s. As it was academically, this is just how it was. It wasn't until 1870, thank you, Mr. Rockefeller, that they subverted the academic system away from the natural sciences over to the allopathic sciences, which is to control nature and to instead of working with nature. And so that's when the transition happened. So I actually had some valuable information come to me from those that didn't get brainwashed from the Rockefeller medical model.
Wow, very powerful. This is a little off topic, but have you ever heard of the book that was printed in about 1870, maybe a little earlier, that had every companion plant? If you want to grow this plant, oh, you know it, don't you?
I have a copy of that book somewhere.
A buddy of mine had a copy. He showed it to me. I was like, oh my God, I need to borrow it. And he's like, you can come here and read it anytime you want, but I'm not going to let it out of my hands because you can't find them anymore. And I was like, damn. So he moved. And when he moved, he can't find it. And I was like, you got to be kidding me. He goes, Leighton, don't worry. It's got to be here somewhere. When I finish completely unpacking and I find it, I will let you know. And I still haven't heard back from him. But
I would take a scanner to him with him there, and I would scan every page if I could get a hold of that book.
Dude, oh my God. I got a chance to see it, but I didn't get a chance to scan. But I did look, I flipped through it for probably an hour. Just was like, oh my God, this thing is gold.
I've got one that's everything was hand. I don't know how old it is. I think it was from the 1920s or the teens that because I'm a book collector, I guess. I love books because you can't you can't mess with a book once they're printed. Anyhow, so their hand drawings and the information in those older books around the turn of the 19th century, the information in there, a lot of that isn't in the books nowadays. The books today are not as I can't think of it. They're not as clear and in depth as the old books were.
Yeah, and you know, man, that when he got that book, he was told by the owner of the book that he and his wife received it on their wedding day. And he goes, that was the tradition, was to give these people tools that would allow them to be successful and move their life forward. He cherished it, but it was time for him to pass it on. And he was a very older gentleman. So, yeah, he was very blessed to have that. And I'm psyched. I'm psyched, dude. Now I know if I need some references, I know where to go. So that we could do a whole nother friggin' show. Whole nother.
I'd have to do some digging because I got a fairly decent sized library, and half of it is in boxes, half of it's on a big, huge, two big walls. But yeah, it's any of those older books. If I love garage sailing, just looking for books, or if I'm traveling, I'm always looking for those books. I've come across some really big, really inspirational and monumental books that were this thin and no covers ripped off, but it was written like 1875 or 1912 or something like that. And especially the ag and the medical books back then, they are not the same as those books we get today at all.
Do you guys remember the title of that book?
I don't, but there was one that came out. Charles Walters put one out that was based on that old book, and it was just called Weeds. Literally, I think it was just Weeds, and it was basically it was a duplicate and an update, Charles Walters updated version of that older book. And that Acres USA, I think you can get it from Acres USA Library.
Nice. Well, I'm glad to hear that it still exists to some degree.
If that book doesn't exist, the information is there, because I've got probably 6 or 7 books in my library from the 1950s back into the 1800s that were fairly true, as in throughout those different books with different authors, the information is pretty mirrored well. And so from the 50s forward, things started to change, especially the 80s. Things really started to get watered down from the 80s forward now.
Yeah, makes sense. All right, so we've talked about ivermectin. How about fenbendazole? What is the gig with that?
It's the same thing. So like it's different mechanisms. So ivermectin and fenbendazole, we'll finish talking about ivermectin, because ivermectin, actually the guy that invented and they used maybe not invented it, but he won the Nobel Peace Prize. I believe it was in 2015 or something. It wasn't really that long ago. He used ivermectin in Africa to end what's called river blindness, which is a parasite that gets into your ocular cavity, in amongst your ocular nerves, or in your eyeball itself, or in your frontal sinus cavities, this whole ocular area. And he eradicated that particular disease, if you will, because what happens is, I don't remember the name of the parasite, and y'all can just look this up online because it's readily available, but he won a Nobel Peace Prize for using ivermectin on people in Africa for getting rid of the parasite infection around the eyes. And so the mechanism, again, with ivermectin, I can't remember exactly the mechanism, what it's doing to the parasite, but it causes it to die. Like fenbendazole, for instance, fenbendazole, I believe, is the compound that causes the glucose pathway, or because the parasites live on glucose. Well, all infections live and crave and thrive on blood glucose, which is blood sugar. And so when you take fenbendazole, for instance, fenbendazole basically shuts off the glucose pathway in the infection, and it causes them to starve to death because they're not able to get their food source, which is glucose. And so fenbendazole works on the glucose pathway to kill the infection. Where and again, I'm a little leery. I don't remember exactly the ivermectin pathway, but when the whole COVID thing came about, what was happening was the ivermectin and the fenbendazole and the chlorine dioxide, they were all shutting down they were all causing the SARS-CoV-2 virus, which was a warfare agent. It's not a naturally occurring virus at all. It's 100% manufactured and deployed in several different methods, either aerosolized or through injection or through bodily fluid or from shedding. And so, but the ivermectin, fenbendazole, and chlorine dioxide, that also shut down the activity and killed the SARS-CoV-2 virus. And so that's partly why that the medical system and all the controllers wanted to really shut down the use of it, because it was a multifaceted thing. Is okay, so the ivermectin didn't just kill parasites, but it also shut down their baby, which is the SARS-CoV-2 virus. And so same with fenbendazole and chlorine dioxide. It basically cleaned the cellular wall off and basically caused their baby, their SARS-CoV-2 virus, to die, because really it was just a cold. A coronavirus is such a weak organism or a weak set of chemistry that our immune system can fight it very easily. But anyhow, we won't have to go over on down that hole too far. But the mechanisms that the ivermectin, the fenbendazole, and the chlorine dioxide, it also boosts our immunity in some of the different ways, where like the chlorine dioxide actually boosts our oxygen level inside of our body, and the fenbendazole and the ivermectin being really pharmaceuticals, but they don't have hardly any track record of causing a toxicity to any mammal. I've taken ivermectin to the point of 80 milligrams a day for over 12 months, and I've had 0 liver or kidney issues. I've taken over 2,500 on some, and up to 3,000 milligrams a day of fenbendazole without having any zero toxicity or issues with my liver or kidney at all, because I monitor all of that stuff because I can. Same with chlorine dioxide. I've taken just exuberant amounts of that stuff, and just trying to see how bad it is, because you have the propaganda coming from the medical mafia. They tell you that you only need, they tell you there's all these different ways of taking it, but I have yet to have a bad experience taking it, even in higher dosages over long periods of time, because there's such a benefit to it. The compound is such a beneficial compound that there's literally 0 toxicity loading at all. The body clears it just as fast as it uses it. So and that's my own clinical experience. That's nobody else's. That's my clinical experience.
Is that product that you offer on your cell site?
No, on my other site that's not up yet, I will have all these available then. The Soil Saviors and the Cell Saviors sites, they're specific marketing brands of a small number of very beneficial products. My other site, which maybe we can do this again once it's up here in another month. I just talked to the web guy. It should be up within the next 30 days. So maybe we can do this again after it's up. But yeah, we do sell fenbendazole I have my own manufacturing facility, so in my own clean room. So we make most all of this stuff ourselves. I do buy in bulk the ivermectin, because I haven't gone down that path yet, because that's a bit expensive to make that. But the fenbendazole isn't an issue. We have all of those. Chlorine dioxide, we make all of that. We actually manufacture over 100 different products in our facility right now for soil. We've got honeybee health products that are going to be coming out here soon. We've got stuff for animals, soil, people, heavy remediation. We've got products that we use downhole to increase oil flow and work in the oil and gas industry. So we're a very diverse company, but at the same time, if you look at the earth as its own organism, again, this is like true biodynamics. If you look at the soil as an organism, if you look at a cow as an organism, you look at us as an organism, there's a whole lot of carryover. There's a whole lot of blending, because we're all organisms. We're all a collection, a walking petri dish,
Yep. I'm into that. Like you said, only 10% human. So
right.
Do we have time to talk a little bit about methyl blue?
I'm here as long as you want. Methylene blue. Yes, I use that. I actually I encapsulate that. Oh, hold on a second here. We got people calling me. Sorry about that. The methylene blue I do. I get the methylene blue hydrate from the pharmaceutical industry. That is the purest and toxic free. It's made here in the United States. There's only 2 companies here in the country that actually make it. I do not get that offshore at all. It comes from this country, from a pharmaceutical company, because I get the actual raw ingredient of the methylene blue hydrate. And then I have my own carrier. So 2 of my mentors were pharmaceutically trained formulators, and so I learned how to create a natural carrier to get something like a methylene blue hydrate, which is not digestible at all. The body really doesn't like it very much. It has a very low digestibility, so that means it's going to pass through really fast unless it's with a carrier. And fenbendazole is another one of those compounds. It's not a food, it's a medicine, and it's not digestible really. The body doesn't look at it as food. So you've got to blend it with something that the body recognizes as food and will take it in readily as food. So then it'll take it in through the digestive tract to make it systemically available. And so I have a really good proprietary carrier that I use. It's a protein based, mineral based, so the body recognizes it as a high quality food in even low amounts, even small, like 400 milligrams. You can put something with 400 milligrams and the body will just suck it in, and so it'll go right to work. Methylene blue, you can look it up online. There's a lot of good information out there, like, I don't know, there's hundreds of videos on YouTube now and Rumble and all different places. It's almost like a tonic because it works to improve cellular energy production, ATP production. It works great at nerve parasites like herpes and so forth. They get along the nervous system. It works good on your ocular nerves. In your brain, it does amazing things in your brain for brain health. I use it in amongst a scan protocol. Been successful now several times at helping people reverse Alzheimer's and dementia over the course of it usually takes about 12 to 16 months to get some of that reversed. And so it also works really good at urinary tract and prostate problems. If for some reason the methylene blue has an affinity for the urinary tract, because that is the detox pathway that it will find its way out. Because when you take it, you will notice your urine will turn blue. If you're not taking vitamins, if you do take vitamins, it'll turn the most brilliant green colors. So on its way out, it does have a positive reaction or a positive side effect to knocking infections down in your urinary tract as well as the prostate when you are taking it. I don't like to take it forever. It is a medicine. I like to somewhere, and again, Most of the time, I use it under a recommendation protocol from our computer, because the computer will tell you the dosage and how long to take it from scan to scan. And it's usually that 2 to 4 months is a good saturation, and then you can cut back to where you're taking it maybe once a week or once every other week, or if you're not feeling good, you can take it. But it is not a food. It is a pharmaceutical compound, and so I don't like to use it extended, because extended use will have some detrimental effect. Just like extended use on a lot of things, there's some detrimental effect. It's not a big detriment, but it is. Would you waste your money if you're not going to get the benefit from it? So it does also I mentioned the brain, the cellular ATP production of energy, urinary tract infection. It also is along the nerves, or the rest of the nervous system, like the spinal column, your muscles. I mean, it does have some kind of a detoxing effect as well. Again, there's scads of information online now about the benefits of it. There's also some negative stuff. I've noticed now the last year, maybe year and a half, that there's been some negative narrative about these four compounds as well. And generally they're not accurate, but there is some pushback, because if you use these four compounds, the ivermectin, fenbendazole, choline dioxide, and methylene blue, for the most part, you pretty much don't need any other pharmaceutical intervention at all, other than nutritional supplementation and dietary recommendations. You don't really need any of these other things. If that goes for, if you're looking for cancer issues, or metabolic issues, or chronic issues, these four in amongst the programs that we use, there is no need for almost any other pharmaceutical drug at all, period.
That's amazing. I really look forward to when you get your site back up to have you come on and go deeper down the medical side of what you're doing. I'd also like to do one on bioremediation. We could talk a little bit more about hydrocarbon fracking and some of these other complex.
Oh, sure.
Yeah. But listen, you have 10 questions, my friend. You're probably
I love
most questioned on this podcast. So we probably
great.
Switch over to that really quickly so that we
fantastic. Let's go.
All right, Ken, fire them up.
Okie dokie. We're going all over the place. We're going to start with Penny. Stress is the last stage. Raise the THC, right? Because you were talking, if your plant is healthy and not stressed, you're not going to get the THC. So for a grower that wants that THC, they have their healthy plant throughout the cycle. Would it be that last, the flower section that they would want to stress to get the THC?
So I'm really not one to answer that, because here's the problem. When you're going to stress the plant, that could be at the end of the cycle. It could be during the whole entire growing cycle. It doesn't matter. When that THC level rises, your terpene level falls, and all your other cannabinoids fall. And so you're going to lose most of your medicinal value, and you're going to be stuck with THC, CBD, and maybe CBG or CBA. I mean, that's it. You're going to lose everything else. So in my opinion, why would you traumatize a plant to purposefully get THC when you're going to then force all the other medicinal and recreational parts of that plant that are legal to go away? Makes zero sense to me. Because
I agree 100%. Everything that we studied and learned about it is you're going to get a more well-rounded, healthy, beneficial high, if that's what you're looking for, or relaxation, if that's what you're looking for, on a well-balanced plant. So, smoke more, take more, but grow it more healthy. That's all.
Yeah, because the cannabis that we sell in capsules has 0 THC. And I'm telling you, you take a handful of those capsules, if you want to swallow a handful of those capsules recreationally, you're going to have a trip like you've never experienced in your entire life, because you have value that you've never experienced. When you have 19 terpenes in a profile, and you have 40 or plus other cannabinoids in there, why would anybody want THC is beyond me, because you're going to get the ride of your life that you're never had before, and you're not going to feel like you had a THC high, because a THC high to me is such a downer that once you experience a full spectrum ride, why would you do that? It makes zero sense.
Agreed, 100%.
So basically, for you guys that are only growing for THC, the whole plant, when you have all of it, is going to be much better, and you're going to get a much better high from what these guys are saying.
Yep. Don't listen to the nonsense. You know, everybody sells you THC. Don't listen to the nonsense.
I mean, THC has some value medicinally, but the benefit of having all the other spectrum inside that herb and zero THC is magnitudes more medicinal than just having the THC and maybe CBD there. It's you're comparing a rock to a cow. It's not even in the same reality.
Cool. So let's see. I have no gallbladder, and I am having trouble with my acid reflux, even though I take formaldehyde and omeprazole, both 20 mgs x a day. What do I need to eat more or less of to decrease it?
Yeah, so your gallbladder is more than just a sac that holds bile. When they take that out, they usually take the gallbladder, which is a little sac like the size of my thumb. They'll take their knife and they'll just carve out a huge chunk of the liver around it to extract all of that. And so when they do that, your enzyme production is going to be severely retarded. And so you've got to stop. And this is my clinical opinion. This is what I tell every person. You got to stop eating cereal, grains, nuts, or seeds in any capacity, no matter what. That is not a food. That's not food. Once you take that food group out of the equation, then a lot of things are going to change. But you have to supplement digestive enzymes and probiotic strains, because that gallbladder, the loss of that gallbladder, your enzymatic production is severely going to be challenged or retarded, and your microbial, just from the surgery in itself, you're going to have a microbial imbalance that may last your whole life. And so you're going to have to supplement, period. And you got to stop eating cereal, grains, nuts, or seeds, or anything made from them. That's the biggest group. If you just stop eating that, there's most of the time people with gallbladder problems or kidney problems or stomach problems. I say 70% of our chronic illnesses are because people are eating cereal, grains, nuts, or seeds, or anything made from them. So if you just stop eating them, your body's able to heal to a point where then you can just supplement with some digestive enzymes, and then you're not going to be so sensitive and over acidic, because that over acid stomach, just eating cereal, grains, nuts, or seeds causes acidosis on its face, period. And so, stop that group, and then the body can relax and heal. But you have to supplement enzymes from that point forward, especially your amylase, lipase, and protease, because those are highly impaired after your gallbladder's been removed to process, especially dairy and some animal products.
Also, on that same note, are drinking more or less, for that matter?
Drinking what?
I would say water.
So, yeah, water. When there's a good website called fibermenace.com. Okay. When you take cereal, grains, nuts, or seeds out of the picture, the whole water equation goes away. We have a thing called thirst for a reason, except most people's thirst mechanisms don't work right because they're consuming too much dry, starchy stuff. That's cereal, grains, nuts, or seeds. When you take that out of the picture, most of the time within a year, your thirst mechanism is going to come back. So then your body is going to tell you when you need water, because you're putting so much of that insoluble fiber into yourself. Then this is where you need to drink a lot more water, because you've got the insoluble fiber there the body has to process. Okay, and that's laid out in a book, in a website or a book called fibermenace.com.
Nice.
And it talks really good about that fiber issue.
Cool. Most people don't understand when they feel hungry, all they actually need to do is drink some water.
Sometimes that's all it takes, and most of the time, people's hunger is really for coming from the infections that they have, because most people want to eat things that are not healthy for them, especially when it comes to the hunger aspect of it. Because when they have, well, most people having these systemic infections, they're going to want to eat sugary things. They're going to want to eat these things that are high in carbohydrate and starch to appease that hunger mechanism, and that's usually a big indication that they've got the systemic infections going on.
Yep. Leighton, anything to add?
No, that was perfect. That one was over my head. Thank you.
Okay, we'll go to the next question. How do you test and verify 1,000 microorganisms in your products?
I have a computer system whereby I have the strains identified, because they've been collected and wildcraft them from around the planet, and that's how I verify.
Okay,
with
cool.
my own system. And most of our organisms that we have, soil organisms, they're so small you have to use an electron microscope to find them, or DNA testing. Well, we use what's called the scalar energetic testing. So we're able to identify it by its unique individual harmonics of the organism, which has been collected and categorized for the last 100 and some years. So it's very easy with the way we do it.
Okay. Leighton, I know you guys are building a model as well. I don't know if you guys could collaborate on that.
Yeah, we're still in the infancy of it. Once we get a little bit further down the line, it's called the pipeline. I think Doc, Will, and I are going to be communicating a lot more after this podcast. But I want to get through these questions, because we only got 22 minutes left. So
okay.
Okay, now the next one's pretty basic. How do we get a scan from Dr. Will?
How to get a scan from me? Call my office. I'll give you the phone number, because right now, like I said, my online presence is a little limited because of we're rebuilding. But you can always call my office. Can I just give the number now, or do you want to? Is that fine? Or
yeah, and Ken can put it in the chat too.
Okay.
Yeah, actually, can you type it all with your system right now?
Let me see if I can put it in the comments. Oh, I can do
you
that.
can put it in the private chat, and then I can put it up.
It's not connecting me to the chat. Oh, wait a minute. No, it wants to connect me to YouTube. What the heck?
Yeah, no, you'd have to go to the private chat on the right-hand side of your screen. At the bottom, you'll see private chat. Oh,
Uh-oh.
Yeah, he's trying to get that set up, guys. So yeah, we're definitely going to have Dr. Will back on. We're going to have Pat back on as well. Next week, you actually have Stefan Burns coming back on with us.
I don't think we should try to do that, because I just lost you. So can I just say it out loud?
Yeah.
Yep. Go ahead.
Ken, and you write this down, please. It's 304 940 8218. It's extension 1006. Is directly to Rose, one of my office girls, or you can just go to the main line. It don't matter. It'll all get there. But 1006 is the extension. So there you go. Perfect. Thank you very much, Ken.
You bet. And guys, I'll also put that into the description as well, so you guys will be able to access Dr. Will. And don't forget, the links for Soil Saver and Cell Saver are in the description. And I have my links in there as well. So if you guys do want to purchase, I can the channel will actually make some money from it.
Ken, was it 306 or 304? Or sorry, Will.
Oh yeah, that's 304.
Okay. So
940821. Yeah, just change that 6 to a 4, Ken.
Okay, I will do that right now.
Or silly.
Yep, 3. Thank you, Leighton, for catching that.
Yep.
Yeah.
It's really small. I'm using my phone, so the everything is extremely tiny.
Silly, just delete your post because Ken had it right. Or delete your comment if you can.
I will.
Yeah. 3. Yeah. She just walked down to make sure I'm getting it right. You know, hey, somebody's got to cover me. So the 304-940-8218 extension 1006.
There you go. Thank you.
Okay. Yep. Perfect.
It's a good thing we boys have handlers, isn't it?
Oh yeah.
Yep. And she's mine. Okay. So let's see here. Are you supposed to use a binder when you use these things while deworming?
With my system, I don't follow that whole binder thinking, because we have probiotics that work to break things down. So, but there are things that do sequester in amongst the way I use it, because I never use ivermectin or fenbendazole or by itself ever, because usually what happens is, so let's just imagine for a second, a number 2 pencil. I don't have one in my pocket right now, otherwise I show you. So a pencil. Okay, some of these worms that are usually in our system are bigger than a number 2 pencil. That number 2 pencil is going to die. It's going to then have to get dissolved. If it's outside of the gut somewhere, like a lot of times they'll be that big and they'll be intermuscular or in a joint somewhere. Okay, so figure a number 2, think in your mind, a number 2 pencil has to dissolve into a liquid. And then it has to work its way through the lymph and the blood to get to an organ, the liver or the kidneys, to get out. That means that if that gets broken down too fast and dies too fast, your detox pathways are going to get blocked up. Your blood's going to get blocked, your lymph, your kidneys can get overwhelmed, or your liver can get overwhelmed. That's why I never use an ivermectin or a fenbendazole by itself, ever. I had too many bad experiences, and I was taught never to do it anyhow. And people just don't listen. And so there's always horror stories, people calling, "Oh my God, I can't believe," because just think about that. Number 2 pencil has to dissolve into a liquid, and then it has to move through your entire body to get to the liver or the kidneys to get out. That's why I never go too fast with the detox, and I always have other things with it. You can't just use a binder and be successful, and not in my opinion. A binder only binds, and then what are you going to do? You're going to have a bunch of binding, and you're going to have a dead worm. And so, it gets a little messy, and it gets kind of complicated. We're running out of time, but you understand my point. I don't really use binders like the naturopath industry tells you to use binders. I have my own way of doing things that is quite different.
Fantastic.
Yep. Okay, so Dr. Will, what brand of ivermectin and fermentobenzene do you take?
Fenbendazole. I buy raw fenbendazole. I get it out of Europe, and I capsulate it myself. I have 250 milligram strength fenbendazole capsules. That's what I use. Ivermectin, I use liquid exclusively. I don't use anything else because I'm well, I'll just let this up. I've been smuggling ivermectin into hospitals to get people out of hospitals for several decades. I use that liquid that you would, number one, it's called a 1% injectable liquid. I get it from the veterinary side of medicine, and I buy it in extreme bulk, big tanks, and then I sell it in 4-ounce bottles and 1-ounce bottles to people, because I have a whole outlaw side of me where I'm smuggling stuff into hospitals, and it's easy The 1% liquid for me mixed with DMSO is much easier to get into somebody that's on a ventilator or that's incapacitated that can't swallow, because I can put it in their belly button and it'll go in real good. I can spray it on their skin and rub it in, and it'll go right in, dermally with DMSO. So I find the liquid, taking it orally, is much better than the pills. I do have a relationship with an Indian manufacturer for pills. I don't have that secure yet, because I'm looking for higher quantities. Like my main dose on ivermectin is 48 milligrams a day. And so it's hard to get. Most pills are 2, 3, 4, 5 milligrams, and you got to take so many of them. So I'm in negotiations right now with a manufacturer to get me 12 and 15 milligram ivermectin right now. So, but I like the liquid. It's just more versatile. It's just ivermectin's ivermectin. It's just a carrier, whether it's in with a powder in a pill, or if it's in a liquid, or if it's in an alcohol base that's a pour-on. It's the same. It's the same active ingredient. It's just a carrier that's different.
Yep. And this is going to be available on your website soon.
All this is available right now if you call in the office.
Okay.
But yeah, within the next 30 days, it'll be online, so you'll be able to buy. So just a little caveat, if I may just take a minute.
Please.
I'm a nonprofit. I'm a 508c1a, which means I'm a private business organization by IRS legal definition. That means I'm like your Costco, or I'm like your Sam's Club, whereby you've got to be a member of my organization. My nonprofit's name is Alternate Perspectives Trust, and you've got to be a member. And for you to buy from me, it doesn't cost anything. I don't charge membership fees. I charge only product sales. So like online, this is why I'm rebuilding the website, is basically in order you can look at everything, but you cannot check out unless you're a member online. So it's a free, just click this box, type your name in here. It's a digital signature, and then I can work with you. Over the phone sales is slightly different because we can just do verbal things, but for online, and then if we're doing scans, you have to become a member of my organization for me to deal with you on that level. This is
now,
for
can
Austin.
you ship overseas or outside of America?
Yes, I'll say simply yes, I can. It's a little challenging. I've got relationships now with a shipper to get things out of the country fairly successful. There is an upcharge overseas because we have to go through some unique steps of customs and working our way through a North American Indian nation that is we're used as our custom broker. But yes, we can go in and out of the country a lot better than we could the last 5 years, because from 2020 till earlier this year, we couldn't ship outside of the country at all. But now I've got this new relationship with this this nation of Indians that are they're bonding, they're bonded, and customs is a lot easier to get in and out of the country.
Cool. I know, because I know when I bought some Cell Saver for the wife and I and had it shipped to Canada, we actually had to pay extra just because I didn't have a FedEx account more than anything. But it's a pain in the ass to get it out of the country.
It is, and this tariff thing has really hurt us bad. I mean, it's costing us extra tens of thousands of dollars, especially on large semi-loads and stuff. This tariff thing is just, to me, a horrible business thing at all. I mean, it may benefit some people, but it ain't benefiting us small people, I'll tell you.
I don't think it really benefits anybody, but that's my personal opinion.
Yeah, right. All right, we won't go down that path tonight, will we?
Yeah, hurry up, Ken. We got 6 left.
Okay.
I know.
Bang them out.
Your opinion of NAC and MSM?
Oh, perfect. So if you're looking at N-acetylcysteine, I am for that. I don't sell any of that right now. just because I do other things right now. It's so much you can get stuff online, Amazon. Heck, you can get decent quality of NAC on Amazon. I like the 1,000 milligram tablets myself for NAC. I take it periodically. It is an amino acid that's good for you. The MSM, I do sell MSM. I buy that in bulk, and we capsulate that in 1,000 milligram capsules. So definitely, they're elements that should be in the food chain. They're not in the food chain anymore because they're not in the ingredients aren't in the soil anymore. And so you've got to supplement. If you're not supplementing, you're never going to achieve vibrant health, period. You can't eat yourself to health nowadays. It's impossible.
Okay, next one. Any other sources of increase of oxygen or nitrite? Stinging nettle extract is unbearable even with lots of sugar.
Yeah. Chlorine dioxide is to me the easiest, best way if you're having an oxygen issue. One thing is, why do you have an oxygen or nitrate issue? I mean, I'm always going back to, why do you have the problem to begin with? And so if you have an oxygen issue, that would be what? That would be a lung issue. That would be a cellular respiration issue. That would be, there's a lot of reasons why our body does not process oxygen and carbon dioxide properly. And so finding out that reason is my focus. That's really what I do when I scan someone, because I'm looking for the cause behind the cause, if you will, the real reason why you're having the symptom.
The root cause, not just the symptom. But okay, now Perpetual is in Europe. Do they just send a swab for a sample for you to do your testing, or how does that work?
No, we use scalar technology, so all my scans are done off a picture. And when you ask Rose for the document, she'll send you the PDF document, and she'll usually send you right away the dietary recommendations as well. But in the document, it shows you, it'll guide you through step by step on taking the selfie or having someone take the picture, and the format, and we don't want you to shrink it. We want it full size, and where to email it to. And so all that's in the document. So when you request the scan registration form or the full body scan form, you're going to get a PDF that has all the directions right in it.
Cool. It's kind of like iridology. You take a picture of the eye and you can tell what the hell is going on.
Pretty much. Yeah, kind of. It's just the technology. We're reading the picture differently than you would look at your eye, but it's just similar that way. I'm glad you saw that. Not very many people know about iridology either, because I used to do that years ago.
I've been in this for since the 60s. So, but anyway, we'll go to the next question. What causes chronic fatigue syndrome?
Chronic fatigue syndrome is one of those diagnoses that I call a garbage can diagnosis, because it has a huge list of potential symptoms to it, and if they get like 25% of the symptoms, then they can give you that diagnosis. Chronic fatigue. So you are having long-term fatigue issues for some reason. What is it? What's it coming from? Malnutrition, just lack of electrolytes. For instance, like our sea salt has 90 electrolyte salt minerals in it. Just by taking our sea salt that we import, that we use, your energy level shoots through the roof just with our salt. Most people have 0 electrolytes on their scan. Most people have less than 30 colloid minerals in their diet. And our colloid mineral king has 78 colloid minerals. Just because you're malnutrition, you're going to be deficient. And when you're malnutrition, you're going to be systemically infected. And it takes a massive amount of energy to manage all that internal things going on with the microorganisms. So chronic, that's not a simple answer. It's a simple question, but there is so many spokes to that hub that I give weekend lectures just on chronic fatigue causes.
There's so many questions and so many different answers for a simple question.
Yeah.
So what happens to people after stress?
So gravity is stress on the body. If we didn't have gravity, we would not have the rigid bones that we have in our body. Stress in and of itself is not bad. It's stress management, or our ability to manage the stress. That's the biggest problem. I mean, we have all different kinds of stress, right? I mean, we have social engineering right now with all our geopolitical crap stress going on, which most of it is, you know, just fiction being pushed at us from all different angles. We have chemicals in our air and heavy metals in our air. There's that stress. There's our family dynamic negative stress. There's, you know, childhood adversity and trauma and falling off your bicycle and falling out of the tree. And so stress in and of itself isn't necessarily a bad thing, except it's the way that we handle and manage the stress. And most of us, because 1958, they took the trivium out of the education system, we have lost as a society now the ability to critically think through problems like we did prior, you know, before 1958. We don't have the skills as a society to handle stress effectively anymore. It's gone. The critical thinking is literally gone unless you've been taught the certain skills that they don't teach since 1958.
It's just like common sense. It's not very common anymore.
It's definitely not. Correct.
So according to Cell Savior, is it just fulvic and humic? So can we use products we can get here in Europe?
So the humic and fulvic acid that we use in Cell Saviors is mined in northern Alberta, I think, or northern Canada, or wherever, somewhere around the Arctic Circle. It's mined out of an active peat bog. It's a live product that's mined. It's not a bunch of separated elements put into a mixer and made. This is a product that's mined way deep in the earth out of an active, live, living peat bog. It's extracted out, and then it's flash frozen and ground up, and then we get the raw material, and then we capsulate it. And so it's full of elements, it's full of probiotics, it's all live. Now, can you get it anywhere else? I don't know. All I know is if you're getting it in the United States, you're getting it from us because we have the exclusive here in the United States for that. That particular product is an exclusive only through us here in the United States. So I don't know where they're shipping it. I don't think they're shipping it to Europe, but there's a lot of humic fulvic acids on the market. Most of your humic and fulvic acids come from shale, and they have to use a chemical denaturing agent. Basically, they grind it up. They then put it in an acid bath, they call it, which is like a hexane or different chemicals to basically separate the colloid minerals from the rock, and then that gets separated, and then the humic and fulvic acid is the mineral part of that, separated from the rock, and then because of the microbial issue, they have to pasteurize it. So they're killing all the probiotics that are naturally there, so you're getting just some colloid minerals that have a potential acid or a chemical with it, because it's almost impossible to wash all the chemicals out of the stuff completely. That's most of your Shilajits and most of your humic and fulvics on the market have been pasteurized, and they have a slight chemical load to it. Ours, 0 chemicals and no pasteurizations. Ours retains the microbial, the soil organisms to the fullest extent, along with all the other exudates. There's I think there's like, I don't know if there's 1,800 different plants in this forest that have been for 60 million years or whatever, breaking down and decomposing to make this really rich, mucky soil in this peat bog. And that's what we're getting the benefit of. All of that alive, and that's what makes it so powerful.
So the answer is no. Buy their stuff.
Well,
And-
in essence, I'm not a good sales guy, but I want to flood you with data so you want to buy my stuff, buy our stuff. Not because I said so, but because you can't say no, because most of the stuff on the market is just crap.
And you guys can ship that into Europe. It's just going to cost more for shipping.
Yeah, it's just going to cost more and it takes a little bit longer. But yeah, the biggest problem is getting stuff out of this country. Once we get it across the border out of this country, then we can go all over the world. It's like, I swear this country does not want anything healthy shared and given to sold to anybody else. It's just the strangest thing since 2020. Before 2020, we shipped all over the world. We had a massive international shipping, but now since 2020, it's been just horrible. Now it's getting a little slightly better because we are finding creative ways to get stuff out of here.
Yep. Anyway, we're at the 2 hours. I think Leighton has another meeting he's going to have to jump off for, guys. So don't forget, Wednesday, we got Andy Lopez and myself still going through his book. And, of course, Stefan Burns, our resident geophysicist, is going to be on for next Monday. So you're going to want to check that out and find out what's going on with the sun and the energy around our planet. Will, thank you so much for coming. We know we're going to have you back, brother. Guys, stick around.
You, fellas.
We'll stick around. We're going to jump off right away so we can do the back end stuff. But, guys, we will see you on Wednesday with Andy.
Thank you so much, Will. Much appreciated.
Thank you, fellas. Appreciate you both.